Minions and Monsters dropped this weekend in theaters, and I took my little minion with me, and I'm so happy I did. Not because the thought of the seventh movie in the franchise fills me with the same warm and fuzzy feelings that accompany Toy Story, but if you are a movie fan, and I assume if you are here, you are at least a little bit, you might have thought about what movies you will show your kids when it makes sense. The things that mean a lot to you, and the things that taught you about taste and reference. When I was growing up, watching things like The Simpsons, there were so many references to movies and TV that I had never seen. But the jokes stood on their own without the reference. And my parents, who got the joke, liked it even more. Over time, your knowledge gets filled in with the source of all the references. But because I had been somewhat introduced to the concept from an earlier age, it sticks in a way that you realize the measure of importance it all has. So join me as I tell you what worked, what didn't, and why I think you should bring your children to Minions and Monsters. Up front, I don't plan on doing a filmmaker's perspective on every kid's movie, but this one in particular has something that will make it worth it to certain parents. So I felt like I needed to dive into this space again. We start the movie inside of a museum of entertainment without a minion in sight. Our tour guide, brought to us by the always lovely Allison Janney, is showing a group of kids and their parent chaperones a collection of important movie history, where we eventually land on the display for Minions Henry and James, the most important figures in the whole museum. With that, we go through the common Minions looking for a villain thing before the group lands in 1920s Hollywood to take over the movie industry. So first thing it has going in its favor, it's a breezy 90-minute romp that should be good for most kids to sit through without getting restless. The plot is fairly straightforward, as you would hope in a kid's movie, and it manages to be fun for kids and adults. What I really enjoy about it is that my kid loves monsters, be it zombies or ghosts or vampires, and this movie gives me a safe space to give her monsters without the fear of scarring her. It's tough because in my mind, I know she will be watching real horror movies with me one day, but the exact moment she is ready is the question. I know it will be a while for sure, but having stepping stone movies like this allow her to enjoy it without giving her a complex. I think the problem for the broader audience is that this isn't the most entertaining the Minions have ever been. And when you get to the seventh movie, you have to find a way to distinguish yourself from the rest of it in a way that is clear to the audience before they buy a ticket. The Gentle Minions phenomenon of a couple years ago was not really about that movie specifically, over just a trend that developed into a thing. There are bus ads and billboards everywhere. I even watched the trailer with my daughter, which is something I don't usually do. I was just more aware of what this movie was about than I am for a lot of stuff I see. And yet I feel like I could have known more and been more excited to see this movie. Great voice cast throughout. If they wanted to do the old school thing where you listed all the Academy Award winner and nominees at the end of the trailer and they were willing to play fast and loose about what they got nominated for, you could run the trailer with 3 Oscar winners and 4 additional nominees in the cast. If I had to pick a favorite, though, I really thought Dort, played by 2-time nominee Jesse Eisenberg, was my favorite surprise of the movie. It's this amazing combination of fake it until you make it confidence and personal growth that felt like it would be unnecessary and turned out to be some of the funniest moments. Additionally, Christoph Waltz as Max was great, serving as the Minions' first film director, and I really enjoyed Trey Parker playing Goomy, the monster who uses the Minions to reach his evil ends. The secret sauce of all the Minions movies is Pierre Coffin, and who co-wrote, directed, and starred as the Minions in this movie. Playing the voices of the Minions is one of those talents that being a talented actor alone doesn't necessarily allow you to do. It's like the actors who are so insanely talented at mocap. It's like a very special skill. Illumination has a really steady team, including Pierre, who work on all the Minion projects and have the thing down. The problem with Minions over something like Toy Story is that the Minions characters are way more exposed over the toys, and it's largely how they each found popularity. Toy Story was an excellent movie, groundbreaking, a great story, and a cultural moment because of the collective, because the movie was a sum of its parts. Minions were the wacky side characters in a movie about Gru and Despicable Me, and they became more and more of the focus because the Minions specifically had the cultural moment. Both franchises have been wildly successful, so that's not about putting down the Minions, but the studio had a lot to do with how that happened. Pixar, before being acquired by Disney, was able to release hit after hit without having to go back to Toy Story all the time. and it allowed them to give it space without impacting the money making. Toy Story, followed by A Bug's Life, and Toy Story 2 was 95 through 99. But up until Disney took over, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, they didn't have to do Toy Story 3 until 2010 because they were busy creating franchise after franchise. On the other hand, Illumination, following Despicable Me with Hop and the Lorax, before having to go back to Despicable Me 2 and Minions. They were eventually able to expand the franchise with Secret Life of Pets and Sing, but once it was clear they needed the Minions, it was about feeding the audience. Now, no one would turn down a franchise like Minions, and no one would turn a nose at the tremendous success of Illumination. But when you're talking about movies at the highest level, everyone is going to be great and successful. Where are the points of differentiation to show where one outpaced the other? All the business people want comps, so here's some of the points. First, these two studios have always been in partnership with Disney for Pixar and Universal for Illumination. But Pixar had a period of time where they were more independent of a company and fought with Disney over terms of their distribution deals. While both companies have independent creative control, Pixar, because of the success of the rest of its slate, had more leverage to continue pushing for original stories, where Illumination, from its founding, was for the purpose of being the animation arm of Universal. Disney wanted Toy Story 2 to be a direct-to-video release, and Pixar fought for theaters. Universal saw a hit and said we should do it more of that. That difference, the rush to capitalize, in my mind, is the part of the perceptible lead Toy Story has over Minions. Toy Story comes out when it's ready. There have been 6 movies in 31 years. Minions will come out 7 times in 16 years. There is a difference in when each studio started, which is very true. But if Secret Life of Pets followed Despicable Me, I think we would have more time between Minions movies as well. To me, there's one thing that really puts Minions and Monsters above other movies you could take your kids to. And I think movies like Toy Story are better movies with a better experience. The thing is that this particular movie gives to your kids is a sense that is a broader world through the references that Minions make that they have to look forward to in the future. Going back to the example of The Simpsons, there is something about references to older movies that I think stick with kids in a way that you will never really be able to explain whenever you try to explain it to them when they're older. They don't even know it, but they are being prepared to enjoy them in a way that you could never have seen. The thing is, TV shows for kids today are not necessarily going back too far with their references. There is a lot of looking at things that have come out recently. For instance, my daughter watches a show called Nastya, and that one made references to Wicked. The references that are in a lot of these kids shows are things that are relatively recent and maybe things that the kids have seen. That's not really an opportunity like there used to be, where you could take a movie that is 40 years old or more, and be able to make a joke that kids understand. Minions and Monsters are able to do that. They're able to focus on some really classic stuff that kids would never really get to experience with otherwise, given the 1920s Hollywood setup. The average person sees 3 or 4 movies a year. If you're watching a YouTube review of Minions and Monsters, you care about movies a little bit more than the average person. So, you're a movie lover. Congratulations, welcome to the club. This one has great references and things that are not far away from being able to show your kids. I showed my daughter the Lumiere brothers. She seemed to enjoy it. I wonder if I showed it to her again, if she would recognize the moon from the Minions. Between Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and all these old Hollywood icons, it's a wonderful opportunity to improve the language your child to comprehend and understand great works of cinema. And under that perspective, I think that this is a worthy movie for your young child. Any kid who is interested in Minions, I would recommend bringing them along, because these foundational pieces of cinema history are not being put in front of children the way that they used to be in shows that I watched as a child and my parents watched as a child. If you're looking for a certain number of kids' movies to go to in a year, I would recommend that this be one of them. Just for that reason, because it really is, I think, so important for the understanding of what movies are and what they can be. They forgot my favorite old movie monster, the Leaderboard. I think the adage, if you've seen one Minions movie, you've seen them all, has a basis in reality. And Minions and Monsters is certainly a Minions movie. That being said, I have always had a good time with the Minions. I still get a delight seeing them from the 101, and I really appreciate the old Hollywood style of this movie. If I had to give Minions and Monsters a score, I would give it a 6.3. It's a fine movie, it's fun, and it's cute. Nothing here is going to be remembered for as long as the people who inspired their references, but I really do think that a kid who sees this will be more likely to have a letterbox when they turn 15. It's crazy. I can say both things at the same time, near polar opposites, and believe both equally. It's the duality of the Minions. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Sorry for missing last week, but I was on set all weekend, and I didn't have time to get a Supergirl review out. Sometimes that will happen, but I'm thankful you are here. Have a great weekend. See you next time.